Welcome back to Jamaica Homes. I'm Dean Jones, your presenter, and today I'm going to be trying to tackle the question of whether you should buy a home in Jamaica or perhaps build your own, which is a dream for many people. It's a tough question. It's one, however, that a lot of people have put forward on our platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. A lot of people have come forward and asked that question, and we felt it would be really good to tackle it, and I've decided to do just that. A bit about me, my background. Well, I first started off as a designer. I attended St Martin's College of Art and Design in London back in 1996. I attended there, completed a BA Honours in Graphic Design, went on to complete a MA in Communication Design at the same university. I then went on to teach as a design lecturer at Barking Technical College in Dagenham. That's in the UK, as you can tell. I am a UK citizen. I grew up in the UK, born and raised, but I have Jamaican heritage, parents from Jamaica, and I've spent my life visiting Jamaica and getting to know Jamaica, as many other people like me have. I then went on to complete a postgraduate diploma in building surveying. That was in 2007, and then went on to complete a master's degree in building surveying and project management. And I've worked for various large and small building consultancies. I've worked for various local authorities in the UK, including ACOM. I've worked for Scott Wilson, to name a few, Lambeth Council, Bexley Council. I've worked for Palace of Westminster. I spearheaded their security program, building program there, and I also worked for Cranfield University and was director of strategic projects. Two main projects were MKU, a new university, Milton Keynes, and a major transformation program. And here I am in Jamaica. So shall we just get straight into this? So the question is this: should you buy or build a home in Jamaica? What's the best option? Unfortunately, this is not a straightforward yes or no. I can't give you that. What I can do is give you a few of the benefits for building, for example, your own dream home, and some of the downfalls, if you like, of doing that. I can also give you some of the key benefits of buying a home and some of the drawbacks in that as well. So shall we just start with building a home? Because, you know, I have first-hand experience building quite a few homes in Jamaica. I've managed quite a few on behalf of family, friends, including myself. So the benefits. Well, the benefits of building your own home in Jamaica. First of all, you've got to talk about the freedom. You've got the freedom to build. The freedom to build in terms of the size of the build, in terms of the shape of the building, in terms of where you want things. You've got the freedom to basically let your imagination run wild and basically build your dream home. You've got the freedom to also select where you want the house to be built in terms of the land. You can search around, you can find a bit of land that suits you. All of this is, you know, contingent on how much funds you have, of course. But you have the freedom to look around and purchase a piece of land in the location that you want. Labour costs are relatively cheap in Jamaica. Again, we'll talk about the drawbacks behind that, because every project needs to be managed well in order to realise those savings that you can get here. So some of the other benefits then. Location. What can I say? If you're going to build, you've got the opportunity to look around. You know, some of the nicest places in Jamaica. Negril, I love Negril. Montego Bay, it's a great views there of the sea. Ocho and the outskirts of Ocho going into St Mary, places like Rhinova, places like Boscobel, all prime areas, up and coming areas where a lot of returnees have chosen to build or buy land. So yeah, location, you've got the freedom to choose your location, whether it be Kingston, the capital of Jamaica, or Spanish Town, or somewhere else. Fully customizable, well, that goes without saying that if you're building your own home and you have your own architect, that you can customize your property as much as you want. Second thing is more space for customization. With a standard build, which we'll talk about in a moment, of course, it whatever has been designed, that's what you're getting. And generally speaking, sometimes you might have less space, less choices to customize after, because it's all been done for you. But if it's your property, then yes, you can customize it all you like. You can sit down with the architect, have many meetings, and reach a design that really suits you, that which you would really like. There are better land choices. What I mean by that, if you spend enough time looking around, you can find pretty good deals, and perhaps make a saving there, in terms of buying a piece of land in an area that isn't necessarily well built out now, but has the potential, or is up and coming. You can pick a piece of land in one of those areas and benefit from the land prices going up afterwards. Ultimate comfort, yeah, obviously by choosing your own piece of land, by customizing your own house. That's the ultimate comfort that anybody wants. There's no restrictions. No, generally speaking, within the planning regulations, you're free to kind of build and have an architect design your house just the way you want it. You can save money with the help of a trained contractor. Second to that is a project manager to monitor the contractor, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. And you get to live the Caribbean dream. That's what it's all about. Getting to the end and living in the house that you have created from scratch on the piece of land that you've chosen. If you get to that stage, it's all worth it. So that's a timeline that is definitely worth it. Another benefit is definitely getting the prices you want. If you're building your own home and you have the time, and it is really important to put a lot of time into it, you get to look around, shop around, and get the best deals for yourselves. You get to design the home to fit your family. You get the peace of mind, of living in the house that you've contributed to in terms of design-wise. There's always more leeway if you've bought a piece of land and you've built on that piece of land, and there's space around, which is usually the case. There's space around the building that you've built. You can always extend the property later on. Higher quality goes without saying. Funds permitting, you can and time, which is I mentioned is important. Spend enough time, and the quality will be great. You can even build a greener house. For example, on a house that I've project managed just recently, I've ensured that that house is able to benefit from rainwater harvesting, which is then filtered and used within the house. So you get to build a green house. You can benefit from things like solar panels that link straight back into the electric supply. You can even sell back that power that you generate back to the JPS, which is the power company, and benefit from lower bills. So those, I think most of those things I've mentioned are the pluses. On the personal level, there's a real sense of achievement when you get to see a house that you've designed, that you put effort into, that you know, sat down with an architect and helped design from scratch. To see that realized is just a great feeling, you know. It's a real great feeling. So on to the negatives of building your own home. Well, some of the downfalls are most people I've met, returnees, not all, but some have gone straight in to build their own dream home, and like most of us do, we get very excited. You know, you sell your house back in the UK, you come here with the dream, I'm going to build my dream home, not necessarily understanding all of the factors behind that. So some of the nightmare stories I've heard is people entering into the planning process and not really being prepared for getting through that process, you know, and the architectural fees. So people not really estimating the cost properly and having the right budget put aside to get to the end of their project. So what happens is what I've found personally is there's hundreds, if not thousands, of unfinished homes all around Jamaica because of various things. People not having the money to complete the build, people not necessarily having the money to have a project manager manage that build or manage a contractor, road contractors taking people's money and not and cutting back on material, using substandard materials or less materials, and cheating people out of their money. I've seen it all. I've seen it all, basically, is what I'm saying. So there are a lot of downfalls. So let's go through the negatives. So some people don't have the money to build. So what they do, they get high risk loans, which I never recommend. That's a very bad thing to do, unless of course it's a bridging loan and you've got monies coming from elsewhere from a sale. Then that's different. That's probably a risk that is manageable if you know what you're doing. But otherwise I don't recommend that. Land costs. If you really want to build in an area that is already been built out, that is popular, land costs in Jamaica have gone sky high now. So that's not cheap, and that will be probably a significant portion of your budget. So you need to consider land costs. You need to consider the land purchase. Along with the land purchase are solicitors' fees. Yes, that they might not be as much as they might not be as much more than you would pay in the United Kingdom, for example, but you've got tax to pay, tax to the Jamaican government, GCT tax, and various other fees when you're purchasing land, and that can amount to a lot of money. So I remember purchasing a piece of land for around 25,000 UK pounds, and the fees that had to be paid on top amounted to around £7,000. So if you take that as a percentage of the land cost, that's significant. It's a lot of money. That 7,000 included solicitors' fees as well. So that is a significant amount of money. So and now you could expect to spend upwards to 40,000 on a quarter of an acre piece of land in a really nice area, and that's 40,000 UK pounds upwards. So it's not cheap. You need to factor in preliminary site investigations, surveyors' fees. That's additional. That wasn't included within the fees I just mentioned there. You need surveys report done on the piece of land. Very important. Highly recommend to get a surveyor to plot out where the land is, to ensure that when you know what you're buying, you know the perimeter I've seen nightmare stories where people have started building their dream house, and they've unfortunately built a portion of the house into the road, for example, and then they've been hit with a stop notice via the local authority to stop building, to basically tear down the property, demolish it, which is a nightmare. Nobody likes a nightmare. So, you know, preliminary site investigations, surveyors reports, early investigation work to check the piece of land, to check the ownership, all of that needs to be done, and that costs money. But you can't jump over those things. Really important. Design costs. Architect fees are expensive, and so you need to factor that in, and you know, shop around. My advice is just really shop around, because one thing that does occur here is you will find that, you know, you get a quotation from one architect, and say for example that quotation was, you know, £4,000-5,000. You go to another one and it's 10,000, and another architect might be 2,500. So it's quite drastic sometimes. So you really do need to shop around in order to try and get the best possible deal. And do use qualified architects. Please do not use somebody who says, I am an architect and I can, you know, draw up your plans. That's a mistake. Don't do that. Always use qualified engineers and architects and builders on your projects. Design costs. So we talked about design costs, estimating costs. You want to spend a fair bit of time estimating your entire build. You know, work with your architect and a project manager and estimate out. If you're planning to, for example, some of my clients, when we tender their projects, for example, we'll get fixed costs. We'll get a fixed cost on the build, including material, so it's all included. But also there are some more experienced clients that prefer to buy all the building materials themselves, and will manage that process on their behalf. But if you're going to do that, then the only thing that is fixed is the fees for the contractor. The building materials will not be fixed, and the building materials in Jamaica fluctuate. Mostly they go up. So therefore, there's things like inflation on building materials to, you know, take into consideration when you are planning your budget, because that can catch you out, especially if you're, you know, just like a lot of people that I know, they tend to start building and the building's not finished for 10 years. Well, you can actually end up spending a lot more money over the 10 years. That's a long time. Inflation, and you find that your money just will not stretch because the cost of things go up. Generally the advice is, you know, if you can find the money for your build, you get your house built within a year or two, as opposed to stretching the entire build out. But for some people, they can't do that. They need to, you know, stop and start, etc. But be prepared, because that does cost a lot more money. Guaranteed, it's going to cost you more. Other things to factor in: construction costs. As just mentioned, that can kind of spiral upwards, especially on an extended build over many years when you're starting and stopping. And also bear in mind, if you're going to be starting and stopping, that will probably mean you won't benefit from getting some of the, you know, the more top contractors to work on your project. You'll probably end up with smaller contractors, and probably more than one contractor throughout the duration of the build. So therefore, the negative around that is that one contractor doing a portion of the build, you know, might not care so much about how they finish a section of the house, or if they're responsible for plumbing, they might be thinking, well, they're not going to be there for the next phase, so they could probably get away with a few bits. So sometimes that doesn't work either, because the next person that comes on board, next contractor that comes on board who views the work of the previous contractor, will almost certainly say, that's not up to scratch, that's not right. and then you end up paying double because you're actually fixing stuff that should have been done properly the first time around, and then you can end up doing that multiple times if you're not careful. So that's a major thing to consider. Material costs have skyrocketed in Jamaica, and they keep on going up. The cost of steel and the cost of cement continues to go upwards, go up and up. As I just mentioned, dragging out the building over many years will lead to increasing material costs and maintenance issues, because unfortunately, you stop a build for 2 years, 3 years in Jamaica, if you're not maintaining the land, the grassland, the plants will grow over the building. There'll possible maintenance issues with having to clean out that build before you start building again, etc. Or possibly people stealing materials from your property if you've left them around the property, or perhaps taking things from materials inside the property, or the rain just causing problems if you've got a half-finished roof. So it's not really recommended to stop or start, but if you are going to do that, you need to plan it out accordingly, or ensure when you stop that you have protected whatever it is that you've built, and it will, it's been protected, it's been left in a manner that won't cause you less, which will cause you less issues later on. Unfortunately, with stopping and starting, or indeed going straight through to the end of a new build, you will make costly design mistakes. I've been there. I know many other people have been there. And the example I usually give is when I was back in the UK, and I've seen a lot of, like, for example, Barratt Homes, big UK builder, and some of the other home builders like Davis Homes. They'll have a blueprint, for example, for a home, and they'll design thousands of homes from that blueprint, and over the course of many years they'll tailor that blueprint, and by the time you end up buying a home from them, it's pretty much perfect, barring a few snagging items, and it's generally perfect in terms of space, in terms of where the switches should be, simple things like where the switches should be, lights, doors, etc. We take it for granted that that's perfect, but when you build a house from scratch, even when you're using a first-class architect, there might be something that goes amiss, because it's a new build. You're considering all those things from scratch. You might think you've got it right, you might think you've spent enough time, but there's always going to be one or two things that you miss that you have to basically pay for later on, if you can't live with it. So building your own dream house is great, and it's fun. It can be a nightmare too, as I've mentioned, but there are many drawbacks. There are design mistakes, costly ones, dare I say, that can be made. So be prepared, and always ensure you have a good sizable contingency. You might never get a chance to live in the property. Unfortunately, that is a never a word true. They say, what do they say over here? Never a word said in true just, or that is so true. You might never ever get to live in the property. That is something that you need to think seriously about, especially if it's an extended build over a number of years, say 10 years, which a lot of people tend to do because they just don't have the money to build the property and complete it all in one go. Bear that in mind. Just really have that in mind. I don't want to sound negative, but there are thousands of properties around Jamaica unfinished for various reasons. People's circumstances change, family member dies, etc. The dream changes, the goal changes. People end up not completing these projects. So That's why I generally highly recommend that you have your budget in place to just get your building started and completed, with a project manager, to watch the contractor, because there are lots of road contractors in Jamaica. Unfortunately, if you sit in England and you think that you can send your money abroad and a contractor is going to finish your home without you being here, 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, you're going to get ripped off. Blatantly, you will get ripped off. Unfortunately, I don't mean to sound negative, but you will. You and to think about, all the many years that you may have worked for, in England to pay off a mortgage and to get to that point in time. It's highly recommended that you get a project manager on board to represent you over here while the build is ongoing, or don't start it at all, I would say. Or thirdly, take a plane out here and ensure you're on site every day to watch the building go up. That's my recommendation, and that will never change at this point. So advice, some of the advice, don't pay for work up front. Never pay for work up front. And I'm just, what am I talking about? I'm not talking about when you enter a fixed price contract with a contractor to build out your home, and as part of that contractor there's an upfront fee, and it's a reputable contractor, and I'm not talking about that situation. I'm talking about where you are building or doing building work, for example tiling, or you've contracted a contractor to do a small change on your property, etc., or a plumber for that matter, or an electrician. Don't pay for work up front. Always, my recommendation is that you pay as the work is going, and you ensure that the payments are never ahead of the work that has been done. So my advice, for example, is if somebody's doing some masonry work for you, that they'll work a week, and then as part of that you make a payment at the end of that week, so you're always paying for the work that is already done. I've heard too many horror stories where people have paid up front and the contractor never arrives on site, or they ask for more and more and more, and unfortunately you end up paying more because you just want the work done, and you're in a situation. So to avoid that, never pay for work up front, or even better, as I've mentioned previously, get yourself a project manager, preferably one from the UK, that understands the pressures, understands the issues, the risks, and understands where you're coming from. Unless it's a big reputable contractor, offer an initial project startup payment after a week of works have been undertaken, as I've mentioned before. Always go for fixed price contracts on work. A lot of people say they like to pay day rates, etc. I'm not with that, because what tends to happen, what I've seen, is that contractors will slow down and draw the work out. You don't want that. So I'm pretty good, and there's lots of project managers out there that are pretty good at kind of summing up how much a job should be priced, and agreeing a fixed price contract should not be that difficult. That way, if they want to take a week or a month to complete it, well, that's up to them, but it's not going to benefit them. So I always opt, where possible, for fixed price contracts, unless of course it's small work like gardening work, general cleanup work. You can go for a day rate, and that's pretty easy because you're probably only going to need that person for a few days, so that's fine. Consider scaffolding, props for foundation, electrical work, etc. Unless the main contractor, get your own plumber and electrician to buy your own material, and get a PM to check what's being used. Hmm. Okay. Consider getting a watchman. I talked about a project manager, but at the initial beginning stages of a build, I normally hire a watchman, and that person basically sits there, sleeps at the house basically, within a little building that is constructed or put on site to basically monitor your building materials, especially if you're purchasing your own materials. It's probably I would say it's worth it because you're paying somebody to watch your materials during the night, but and that probably mm, I would say that that's absolutely worth it because you're going to save on the materials that would have been taken if you hadn't had the watchman there. So it's really cost effective to have one. Again, I've got to mention this, and I've mentioned it 6 times before, but I'm going to mention it again. Hire a project manager. Yeah. Another drawback, how big? What do you want to build? Those are the things you need to consider up front, because as fun as it may sound to build your own dream home, cost is a massive factor, and you need to be realistic up front. I've seen too many times where people have come over to build 21 bedroom houses and not had the money to finish, or not grossly underestimated the amount to build the property and end up leaving a half unfinished house because they just don't have the funds to finish it. Don't be that person. Estimate your budget from estimate your build from the beginning with your project manager and architect, and build something that is manageable, that you can finish. I recently spoke to a returning resident who I know quite closely, who's built a fantastic home. It's a great home. It's 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms. It won an award in an architectural magazine. But the gentleman said to me, and I always remember this, that he wished he now built a 3-bedroom house, because out of the 20 plus years he's owned this property, his entire family have only been there twice, within I think a 20-year period. So he's built this 8-bedroom house, 8 toilets, massive kitchen, massive grounds, beautiful scene. It's fabulous. But unfortunately, for health reasons, he's living on the ground floor in a room that was meant for a helper. Why? Because he finds it difficult to get upstairs. So I'm just cautioning that a lot of people go into building a home and they're not necessarily thinking about the long term, especially if you're of a certain age. Consider that. Consider what you're building. Consider the fact that when we get to a certain age, making up lots and lots of flights of stairs might not be the best thing. So maybe building a 2-story property, and ensuring that there's bedrooms on the ground floor and stuff like that can help ensure that should a time come where you can't make it up the stairs, that the property is still suitable, it's still fit for purpose for you, for living in. It's big, a big property is not necessary. Bigger isn't always better. I always say quality over quantity, and paying attention to detail and ensuring that it's got the highest quality ever is the best thing. I've seen some beautiful properties which are just 3-bedroom properties, wonderful grounds, with swimming pools and etc., but are just not over the top, but are fit for purpose, and they do what they're designed to do. They're designed to live in. One of the drawbacks with some of the massive properties that I've seen is that you've got a kitchen on that side of the property, and you could be walking how long over to the other side of the property just to get to a bedroom. And how realistic is that? In reality, you're running back and forward each day, and you could be getting out of breath just to get from one room to the other. Not saying you should be that. Not saying that will actually happen, but I've been to some properties that you think, wow, that's amazing, but on a practical level, it's just not great to live in. It just can't be, because everything is that far apart. It's almost like being in a hotel. So my advice is to be realistic with your build, and always, have in mind how much money you've got to spend from the beginning. If you're going to an architect and you've got that in mind, with your contingency already set aside, that's a good starting point. Be real, be honest, and always consider the fact that even if you build a smaller property to begin with, as long as you've bought a big, a sizable piece of land, you can always extend later on. It might be a case where the architect designs you a home with a phase 2 that is approved, and once you've started your build, then you've got your planning for the entire build. So you can almost see a situation where you build phase 1 out, and if you get to a point in life where you have more money, you build a phase 2 of your property. So always consider that. It's better to get it done, finished, completed, and ready to be lived in, than to have something unfinished for 10 to 15 years. Always consider what kind of quality you're after. Are you after high-end finish? Middle of the road? Are you prepared to go low-end with low quality end finishes? What is it that you want? Be realistic from the beginning, and be honest with the architect from the beginning, and your project manager and or builder, because they'll be quite direct in telling you what you can achieve and for how much. And it's better to do that in order to ensure you do get to the end. And consider this one. Are you prepared to build a house in a year or over a long period of time? Really consider this, because if you don't have the funds and it's going to be over an extended long period of time, consider all the things that I've said beforehand, because it's real. There are many drawbacks to doing that. I'm not going to put you off completely, because I've done that, okay? And I've learnt many lessons from doing that, and I'm not saying it wasn't worth it, but what I am saying is there's a lot of risks around doing that, and I'm professionally qualified. I have a degree in design and building surveying, and it was challenging. So just bear that in mind.